option for everybody running legacy systems, but for those folks who upgrade to Boost, you'll now have access over the new deal protocol to be able to execute HTTP transfers and HTTP over libp2p transfers. And so what the HTTP transfers will endpoint. And then once that deal is accepted, storage provider Boost will immediately start downloading that data. So you don't have to worry about any offline stuff. It's all done as an online deal. One of the nice things about that is we're taking advantage of all of the performance that has been made to HTTP over the years, right? And so some initial things that we've seen is some storage providers who are testing out Boost today are already seeing some 20x speed improvements because they're able to leverage HTTP as part of that transfer. So the throughput rate on data transfer, which has been a blocker in the past, we should see a lot of improvements there. For other applications like estuary, let's take a step back, and then we want to provide more opportunities for folks like CID Gravity who are building awesome stuff to be able to continue to expand on that, provide them more information they need. So we're excited to work with everybody in the community to help provide the information that you need to extend Boost for your needs. So hopefully, did I cover? Oh, yes. Oh, forgot to mention. So in 1.15.1 Lotus, we launched the index provider integration, and that we already have support for that in Boost. So you're not going to need to do anything. This will immediately upgrade, and you'll be able to do that announcement as well. So talking about switching. So how do we do that? How do we go from the current version of Lotus, the current version of Markets into Boost? So it's worth noting that Boost is meant to be a standalone replacement for Lotus Market subsystem. Ultimately, what we want you to do is shut down the current version of Markets and replace it with Boost. And so in order to do that, we've got a migrating page on boost.filecoin.io that you can see today. And so what we currently have in place is for folks who have already split their miner and markets processes in Lotus. You'll be able to go through and do that process very easily. For folks who haven't, you'll need to split out your markets process. However, what Dirk and Anton are already looking at is how to go from Monolith directly to Boost so you don't have to do this market splitting. And we're hopeful that we can do that by launch. So hopefully we'll have both options in place before that goes out. And to kind of give you a quick overview of architecture, thanks to Dirk for the diagrams. As you can kind of see how Boost and that split markets process works out today, is Boost is integrating with Lotus and Lotus Daemon over JSON RPC. And so the idea here is that you can split out, Boost can run on a separate machine. For folks, they might already be doing this with the split markets process. And then you can expose, Boost will be exposed out to the clients there. You can also see that we have this GraphQL endpoint that we're currently leveraging for the web UI, but in the future, potentially people could build their own services or clients or CLIs on top of that GraphQL endpoint. So again, really touching on extensibility there is kind of our future goal. So to talk a bit about what's coming next, timeline for Boost, and then we'll talk about some future features. So again, we're currently working with Estuary, CID Gravity, Bidbot, some other folks on wrapping up integration. We want to make sure that both as we roll out and implement those libraries into these systems, that backward compatibility works out of the gate. We don't want any disruption to the current network. And so we're making sure everything works that well. Then what we're going to do is once that's all working and we've tested against Boost and both the legacy markets and Markets V2 are all working really well, what we're going to do is we'll announce kind of a broader beta phase. So folks who are interested in that early adoption, this will be a stage where we're really confident what's going on there. The legacy works really well. New version of Boost works really well. So we'll announce that if folks want to adopt early, provide feedback, which is really valued. If you're very adventurous, you can test it out today and jump in the Boost channel and give us feedback. We'd love to hear it. But for folks who are a little bit more cautious, you can wait till either the beta phase or full launch, which we're talking about mid-April. We were originally hoping for end of April, but we're going to push out to mid-May so that we can make sure that we get all of this integration really buttoned up. And if you want to follow along with progress, you can join the Boost channel in Filecoin Slack and talk to us there. So after we launch, after we get this current iteration out, what's next? What can people anticipate? Our plan is not to just like launch this and then walk away. We have a lot of ideas for future work and we'd like to continue. We're really hoping people have like a lot of feature requests and support that we can kind of extend or provide more options for people to build on top of this. So some things that we're looking at, we've gotten a lot of feedback from storage providers. I'm starting to see a lot of things around scaling this markets process. as people are really building up their ceiling pipelines and expanding them out, they've talked a lot about scaling Boost out, so more markets processes. So what we want to do, and we're going to be reaching out, and we hope like please provide us this feedback, is we really want to understand like what are the difficulties that folks are feeling are hitting with scaling their markets process. We know that data transfer has been a problem, but we really want to understand like what is the issues that you're having so that we can approach scaling on the right path and deliver the right thing to you. We're also looking at HTTP retrieval, because as we've provided this native option to upload HTTP car files over HTTP, we want clients to be able to get that back over HTTP. So we're looking at that as a potential follow-up item, and kind of determine priority that with you all. And then we're also looking at experimental support for bit swap retrieval. We have a proof of concept of that and are hoping to turn that on as a flag. And so folks can test it out, and people who are storage providers and clients who are trying to do more integration with IPFS, we want to make that an option and start testing that out over the next few months. And so again, we have the discussion forums in the Boost repo. Please join those, help us decide what we're going to do next, what we should be working on, feature requests, all of that. We're very active there. Join us in the Boost channel if you want to see what's going on. And then if you have any help as your help requests as you're going through this, or are having any trouble, want to know what's going on, you can also join the Boost Help channel that was just created today in the Filecoin Slack as well. So with that, in the overview, I'll pass it off for what everybody came here today, Anton, to go over the demo.
Hey folks, let me share my screen and walk you through a demo of Boost. Right, so at the moment, we have access to a mainnet miner, and you can see that we have Boost daemon running on it. So basically it's supporting Boost, and at the moment it's not really doing anything, so no ceiling jobs. So this miner is F0127896, which we use in our team to do testing on Boost and markets over the past few months. And I'm also port forwarding to that machine and running the UI locally. So this is why you'll be seeing localhost 3000 on my browser. So this is the main page that you see when you open the Boost user interface, and you see all the storage deals that have been made with Boost. As Jake said, we are backwards compatible with Markets v1. So we also provide an overview of the legacy deals that this miner has been attempting over the past few hours, days, etc. Basically all the legacy deals. Here you can see some of the deals that we did earlier today, like a few hours ago. They're snap deals, so this is why they're like in the update activating state, and it will take finality 900 epochs for them to get to proving state. And we also have one deal which is in await deals sector. So this is what the storage deals screen shows. If we click on a specific deal, we go into the detailed screen where you can see all the details around that deal, including peer IDs, epochs for start epoch, end epoch, basically all the details, what kind of transfer was used to transfer the data. In this case, it's an HTTP transfer with Boost, the URL where the storage provider downloaded this deal from, and all the logs around what happened with that deal, tagging of funds, transfer progress, adding it to the local database and whatnot. So if there is any problem here, you can just click that button, copy all the data to clipboard and send it to us over Slack so that we figure out what went wrong with the specific deal in case we hit any bugs and problems. In the ceiling pipeline, we see an overview of the ceiling pipeline of the storage provider. We see that deal, which is in await deal sector. So after a certain period of time, this sector is gonna go over the steps of snap deals so that it gets sealed. And currently we're waiting for more deals. So let's just trigger one deal right now. I'm basically going to be using Glyph.io. So on my local machine, I don't have a Lotus node, so I'm just setting an endpoint to a full node, in this case, Glyph.io, and I'm going to be using the AutoDeal tool. That's basically a test tool that we have locally, which that we use within the team, and I have a predefined set of parameters for sample deals. For example, the URL where the storage provider should download the deal, the comp for the given deal, the P size, the car size, and the payload CID. So when you make a deal with Filecoin, all those parameters you need to provide them so that you know that the storage provider has actually downloaded the correct data. The data has not been modified, its content addressed, and exactly what size it is and in what kind of piece it will be added, so that you can later verify that it's being proven on chain. So that's basically what the AutoDeal tool does. It's calling the boost deal under the hood. This failed at the moment because we're a little bit aggressive with the provider collateral that we request, and this changes from one epoch to the next. So I'm just going to run it again and hope for the best. Basically the deal provider collateral changes from one epoch to the next, and it's a little bit racy at the moment. In any case, now we just sent correctly a deal proposal. We have a deal UUID. We can also query from the client side the status of that deal. By default, I'm making deals with this storage provider that I just showed you, but of course you can do a deal with any storage provider using the boost deal command. It's not a verified deal, so it's just a deal where we pay Filecoin to the storage provider so that they store it, and the start epoch and the end epoch. So if we quickly go back to the boost user interface, we see that the deal has been accepted and it's already transferring. And we also have the deals transfer screen, which shows the current bandwidth with which we're downloading this. So this particular machine, it's on a home network, 100 megabit connection. So this is why we are around 36, 37 megabits. It's possible that it's doing also something else at the moment. It's not strictly 100 megabits, unfortunately. It's much lower than that. Usually it's up to 100 megabits. So soon this deal is going to get transferred, and we're going to see it in the published deals section. So while we're waiting for that, let's review the other screens. We have the storage space screen, which shows the transferred data and the pending data that we're still waiting to transfer. This miner is configured to accept up to 100 gigabytes worth of deals before they get passed to the ceiling node. So at the moment we have tagged 1.9 gigabytes for that particular deal that I just started. As soon as it's transferred, it will get into the staged area, which is basically deal data that has completed downloading, but it's waiting to be added to a sector. And once it's being added to a sector, it goes on to the sealer, just like this deal here in a wait deals sector. So yes, you can see basically an overview of the boost storage space. We also show an overview of the legacy deal transfers. At the moment, we don't have any legacy deals with this miner. Under the funds screen, we see the storage provider funds. There are two wallets, one used for deal collateral and one used to publish send published storage deals messages on chain. We're going to do that in a second. We see how much funds we have in those wallets, how much are tagged for new deals. So basically these funds right now are reserved for this deal that we are currently transferring. We also see how much funds are available within the wallet and how much funds have already been locked in escrow. And the same for published storage deals. We basically tag funds for the next message and how much funds we have in the actual wallet. In the message pool, we see all the messages that this miner currently has sent to the message pool. At the moment, we don't have any messages, but once I click the published deal message, it's going to show up here. And we can also show all the messages that are not local. So basically all the messages that this full node is seeing on the network. We also have the settings screen where we can change the storage ask prices. We can change the minimum and the maximum P size that this miner accepts. And we also see some details around the LEAP P2P identity of the Boost node. So we can see the peer ID and we can see the public IP where it's listening. So this is mostly it from a user interface perspective. Now Boost comes up with 3 binaries. So we have a Boost client, which we run on the client machine when we want to propose deals. And this is what we were using here to propose a deal. So right now on my local machine, if I do Boost wallet list, we basically have 2 wallets set up on this machine. And I'm targeting the public glyph node for information about those wallets. So the wallets are set up locally and the private keys are local on my machine because I need to be signing the deals that I'm sending to storage providers, but I don't have a full node running. And we can see that one of the wallets that we're using has a balance and also has some funds already in the market actor. And these are the funds that are in the escrow and basically are being used, being locked for that particular deal with the storage provider. You can export, import wallets from your Lotus node. You don't need to create new ones. But when you initialize Boost for the first time, we auto-generate a wallet for you, which can be handy if you don't have one at that point in time. All this is documented in our Boost Filecoin.io website. That's our documentation website. We have a getting started guide for storage providers as well as for clients who want to be making deals with Boost. And we also have tutorials on all the steps that one needs to make in order to put files on Filecoin, even if they don't have a storage provider like we do here in this demo. So that's mostly it. We need to wait for a few more minutes for this deal to be fully transferred. Dirk, is there anything else that I missed that we want to share?
No, that was really good. Thanks, Anton. Maybe we could go over the process for like the client process for running the BoostX tools to car up a file, compy.
Right. Okay. So as I mentioned, Boost is coming up with 3 binaries. One of them is the Boost client binary, which we just used. The second one is Boost D, which is the Boost daemon that storage providers are running. And we saw that running here on the storage provider. And the third one is an experimental set of utilities that we use for development and testing of Boost. And this could also be useful to for clients who want to store data on Filecoin. So what do we have inside of BoostX at the moment? So we have commands to calculate compy of a file. Of course, many people already have tools to do that, but we just provide them so that folks have an easy one utility that they can use to generate these things. We also have a generate car utility, which encodes your data into a car format, content addressed archive. We have a tool to add funds from a wallet into the storage market actor. So even if you just have a wallet with a few Filecoin in it, you can use BoostX to move them into the market actor. This is what we saw here. So the first wallet, as you can see, it has like 0 fill, balance, and none of them, of course, none in the market actor. And if we want to move some of those funds into the market actor, we can use the market add command. So this is what BoostX is. We'll probably be adding more handy tools here to send messages on chain and sign them, anything that is helpful for making deals with Boost. So this deal now is fully transferred, and we see it in the storage space area that's now moved all under staged, and it's ready to be published. the way the miner is configured, we publish deals every 20 minutes, but I'm just going to publish now immediately. And we can see that it goes into the awaiting publish confirmation stage, which takes 10 epochs. We basically wait for the message to be included on chain. Looks like this happened very quickly and it's already included, but we need to wait for 10 blocks to be mined before we get into the next stage, which will be a snap deals, wait deals state. Yeah, so that's mostly it. We went over the binaries. We went over creating a deal with a client and also how that looks from a storage provider's perspective. We can also use the UUID to query the deal status from the client perspective. We need to provide the provider and we also need the deal UUID. So here is the provider. Whoop. And this is where the demo gods are failing me. Signature verification failed. I think I also, this is probably because I'm not using the default wallet for this particular deal. I'm using a different wallet and it's probably trying to sign it with my default wallet. Yeah, that must be it. So now we see basically the deal status respond on the client side from the storage provider. We see that the deal is in a waiting publish confirmation step. We see the deal label, the publish CID as well. We can query for that publish CID on chain. And we can see when it was included with the deal proposal. And yeah, as you noticed, the default wallet is the one that doesn't really have funds. And the other one is the one that we actually used for that deal. So I had to specify explicitly the wallet. I think that's mostly everything that we have prepared for this demo.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anton. So I think next we'll go through the Q&A. I know there's some questions that were typed in the chat that weren't answered yet. So I'll just read out those first, and then we'll open the floor to anyone who has like live questions. So the first one was from Hassan, who says, I want to ask later about dealing with multiple miners through Boost, just making sure I don't forget. So Hassan, if you want, feel free to clarify if you have any details about this question. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so from what I saw from the demo is that I can monitor one miner. Is it possible to monitor more than one?
Yeah, at the moment we're Boost is only a single node process, so yeah, so you can really just monitor one at the moment.
But if I have more than one miner, then I have to have different installations.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. I think there's, let me see. So, okay, I think Hassan, you have some other questions as well. So around CID gravity. So what you typed in was, it seems like there's some overlap with CID gravity, like things for min and max sizes. Can Boost replace CID gravity? And I think here, the goal is not to replace CID gravity, but to enhance the offerings that CID gravity has. Yeah, Dirk or Anton or Jake, if you want to elaborate a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah, that's right. So we've been working closely with CID gravity to make sure it's compatible with Boost. So there is like a small amount of overlap, as you noted. You can set the price of your deals through the Boost UI as well. But yeah, the intention is for CID Gravity because they're sort of more specialized in how they handle deal acceptance to just continue to integrate with Boost rather than us replacing that functionality.
Great, thank you. And then the next question, is it possible in the future to allow Boost to run sealing commands instead of having to do it from command line? And Hassan, if you, I think reading from this question, the question seems to be around if you can run it from the Boost GUI. Is that what you were asking?
Yep.
Yes, I think Mayank already sort of answered that question. Basically, Boost is really supposed to be focused primarily on deal making. So we're not really trying to get into the sealing part. So I don't know if you remember, there's a diagram from Jake's presentation where like Boost is kind of sitting in between Lotus Miner and the user, but we're not really trying to manage the Lotus Miner functions directly.
Okay. And then I think there's one more question. Can I monitor the status of offline deals through Boost?
Yes, yeah, you can. So once you propose an offline deal, or once a client proposes an offline deal, it'll show up in your list, and there's a field in the UI that shows you that it's an offline deal. And then once you actually import the data, you'll see all the progression of the deal. It'll tell you once it gets to the sealing stage and so on and so forth, and show you all of the logs.
Awesome. So next couple questions are from Stuart. Yeah, so Stuart, feel free to ask the question live if you want, but I'll read it out for now. But yeah, when do you think we can begin early testing with Boost plus SID Gravity plus BidBot?
So as Jake said, that depends how brave you are. So we're targeting a release for mid-May, like an actual initial launch for mid-May. If you want to, you can start the beta program probably in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, obviously you'll be part of the kind of debugging cohort until we get to initial launch.
Yeah, I just don't want to try to test if there are integration issues that haven't been solved yet.
Yeah. So CID Gravity, we're actually working with them this week. So we're hoping those issues will be sorted out. But I think, yeah, you might want to wait maybe another week or so.
Okay.
And with regards to BidBot, I've been in contact with Textile, and they're currently working on an integration. So I'm not sure exactly what their timelines are, but I know that they're actively working on it this week.
Okay.
And then I think you also had a question around hardware requirements and if they changed with the Boost updates.
Anton, you want to answer that one?
The hardware requirements certainly haven't changed compared to Market's V2. We are certainly going to benchmark them before the initial release and give recommended requirements for that machine.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't really have better details on that. Yeah, Dirk.
So yeah, I was going to say, in particular, we're hoping that like GraphSync tends to use a lot of CPU because it's doing hashing. It's a block-based protocol, so it needs to hash all the incoming data in order to produce the block CIDs. And it also uses a bit more memory just because of the way the protocol is designed. It needs to buffer more. So if you're doing HTTP transfers with Boost, you shouldn't need as much CPU and memory, hopefully.
Awesome. So I think that's actually all the questions that were typed in the chat. If anyone has questions that they want to ask live, feel free to do so now. Yeah, I think thanks to Jamie for everyone to unmute and start their video. So yeah, we'd like to hear your feedback or input or questions if you have any. Any questions?
One thing I will note that I know Jennifer put in chat before she had to jump is that one of the things we're hoping right now, Boost just works with Lotus, the replacement for the Lotus Markets process. But because of it, it worked to standardize and put FIPS in place for these APIs that eventually, if we replace and we standardize, create a spec for the RPC APIs for Lotus and the other implementations, Venus and Forest, and any future implementations, that the idea is that Boost would be able to integrate with any of them. So that's our long-term hope as part of that standardization process. So just wanted to call that out since that was in chat. But right now it'll just be for Lotus.
I guess as a little bit of feedback, I'm curious about the direction to go GUI. I mean, it's a nice interface, but I guess my question is, as we scale up, how does that work for us, right? In terms of having GUI interface. And the only reason I say that is I remember Cisco Systems, the network gear provider, they tried that. They tried adding GUI to their systems, and it was pretty, but it really didn't scale to enterprise levels because nobody wants to run 1,000 screens. So I'm just curious how that's going to affect us in the future as we scale up to either lots of nodes. A lot of us are used to running a watch command against a few particular CLI commands.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've built a GUI. However, the GUI is like talking to a GraphQL interface. So anyone can interface with that GraphQL interface, with the language of their choice as a GraphQL client. And also, of course, we're open to adding, CLI commands that you think will be useful. So if there's something you see is not performing well, or you anticipate you're going to have performance issues, feel free to open a ticket and we can discuss.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Now is your chance.
Yeah, so one other thing to note is right now, we've sort of put together the UI based on our experience with the miner that we've been running. But we know that all of you have very different systems set up in individual ways. So we're open to feedback, and now's probably the best time to give us feedback as we're developing Boost. It's easier for us to make changes now. So feel free to ask questions or post ideas on our issue forum.
Dirk. Yeah, great. Yeah, like Dirk said, it'd be great to hear feedback, and we do have like 2 channels on Filecoin Slack. So if you're testing out Boost and you have questions, feel free to ask in the Boost help channel. And then for like ideas around like feature requests or like feedback, we also have a more general Boost channel where Dirk and Anton and Jake post a lot of their updates in terms of development work and progress there. So feel free to follow if you're interested. Yeah, and if you have questions as well for support, feel free to tag Mayank or myself, who can help you all.
Yeah, in the past few weeks, we've heard questions around supporting multiple Boost instances. Now we heard a question about supporting multiple miner instances. It would be very helpful to hear a little bit more about the architectures that you're running, the problems that you're hitting with the existing Lotus implementation, and how can we address those with Boost? For example, right now I'm wondering, having heard the question around, does Boost support multiple miners? Why would you run multiple miners and not aggregate all the sectors that you have under one? Is it because you're maintaining infrastructure for multiple organizations, or like what's the reasoning there?
Well, I can't speak for Hassan, but in our case, there's really 2 reasons. Some of our customers require a non-shared infrastructure, right? They cannot allow us. They don't want us to put their deals mix it with other deals, and part of that is lack of granularity on the retrieval filters, right? That you can't kind of pick and choose which ones are retrievable or not. But I think my experience in the enterprise is you still have that requirement from enterprises that just say, look, we don't want shared infrastructure. We want dedicated infrastructure. So that's one reason. The other reason is just practical. In the case of how much can you shove at a miner all at once, right? So there's some practical limitations of TIBs per hour. So in order to scale up, we just keep adding miners. It's not very efficient, but at some point, we're not going to want to run an exabyte on a single miner, right? So it's really a scale out question.
Okay, that's precisely the information that would be super helpful to hear within our team. So if you can share a little bit more about your particular architectures within these channels, or even do a demo of your current setup, that would be very, very helpful for us.
Okay. We'll try to arrange something. Who should I talk to kind of set up a demo or something? Is that you, Brenda?
Yeah, you can talk to me, and then I'll organize something with the team.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stuart. Just wanted to say you hit it right on the nail. It's basically those two exact reasons why we need it. And when I asked, Derek, he confirmed that I'm going to have to install multiple, instances. So the more miners we add to our data center or infrastructure, the more versions we're going to have to use instances of Boost. So it'll definitely be helpful. I know CID Gravity now is working on having this feature of claiming your miners into a single account, so can you manage them all from the same place? So it's kind of the same thing. It's a scalability issue.
Just to drill down a bit into that. So when you say you're running multiple miners, do you mean there's multiple addresses on chain?
Yes.
Interesting. And why would you not just run a single miner that's sort of like with lots of instances of like the sealer, for example?
It's just really hardware limitations. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back to the hardware guys and check with them.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I'm just sort of trying to get an idea of where we can, like, because we want to make sure that if we add the ability to target multiple instances, like we want to, it's going to add a bit of complexity. So we just want to make sure that we're targeting the right changes, when we add that complexity.
Yeah, and that's why I referred to the CID new feature that's coming up of claiming miners under the same account. So maybe that could help you, guide you through the integrations or the deep technicalities of it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hassan.
I think we already have an open issue from discussion from Stuart about scaling up. So I think, Hassan, you can also add your thoughts, and maybe Stuart, you can also update your architecture and your thoughts there as well. So everybody can basically follow up in the community.
Yeah, that was really to have more than one market node on a single miner, not to have multiple miners. And that's just scaling in terms of, how much we can push through a system at any given time. So I think it's slightly different, to have one market node on multiple miners or multiple market nodes on multiple miners. This is having multiple market nodes on a single miner. That was the first scale out step we're looking for.
Okay, so just a quick follow up. So basically, I have an idea. Like we are basically looking for an endpoint from where we can monitor all of our miners rather than going and individually going to each pages, right, in the market node. So I think that I have no idea how. I mean, it can be done with the GraphQL. Not sure how that can be achieved, but again, I'm not exactly sure if this is something that team would be doing. But I think you can open a discussion there for using a single point of monitoring for multiple miner nodes or multiple boost nodes, basically. And add your thoughts there, why it's necessary and what kind of challenges you're facing with the current infrastructure and currently running, Boost as a single market instance for each miner.
I mean, if you look at the current architecture of Lotus, you can add as many ceiling nodes and you can have them as small or as large as you want to build them, right? And that's pretty handy. But we can't do that with miners and we can't do that with market nodes today, right? We can only scale out ceiling nodes. But I would say the one feature that's missing from scaling nodes, that if you're going to build it into market nodes, is an easy way to attach and detach, right? So ideally, we would try to dynamically figure out, which ceiling clusters are available and try to keep, different miners able to request or connect to ceiling clusters so that we can, keep the equipment operating at close to 100% efficiency, right? That's kind of a thing we always think about, is efficiency. So you don't have some systems idling and others, running at 100%. Some people have thought about load balancing and other schemes, but today it's a very primitive approach that we take.
And then would you say that the scale out for the markets node is like, I guess, comparing to being able to monitor like multiple minor nodes, like which one do you think is more critical to your like operations, like being able to scale out a market node or having like the multiple minor monitoring?
Well, I haven't really thought about the monitoring piece of it. It's more of the, having enough hardware to service all the activity going on. So it's nice on the ceiling cluster side where you don't have to dedicate a ceiling cluster to one particular miner. So if you had the same approach with market nodes, like it's not dedicated to a miner, you could scale it out and have as many market nodes as you need at any given time serving one miner, but then you could, rebalance it and then push other, some of those market nodes to a different miner as needed.
I see. Okay.
So it's just an efficient use of hardware. If you think about it in that way, that, there are times when you don't necessarily need, all that horsepower, all that, the size of those market nodes, if you can scale out. Again, the assumption underlying all of this is there are requirements to have separate miners for different clients and customers where they can't share resources, right? It's like, we're just not going to share, we're going to have a half dozen or a dozen miners because we have to have it. Even if we solve the scale out issue, there might be one where a customer says, look, I've got a dedicated machine and I'm not going to do any sealing or any deals for the next month. Right. So what a waste to have, dedicated machine just sitting there waiting.
Okay.
That's interesting. Is this a problem that you're running into today, or is this kind of something you're foreseeing in the near future?
Well, today what we do is we just have lots of market nodes. We got, if we, and James, maybe you can speak to it better than I can, but if we're splitting the market node from the miner, which I think is our preferred approach, then then you've got to have every market nodes for every single miner, and some of those I think are just not being used very much.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Stu brings up a good point. That's just a scaling issue, like he's mentioned. We have one market for each miner, and we're not importing deals 24/7, right? So sometimes the market will just be idle. So having the ability to kind of attach and unattach markets would help optimize hardware use in a way.
Yeah, so you're saying you have one machine dedicated to each market's instance, right?
Right.
Got it.
And the market conditions of the the general market are such that supply chain issues are really killing us, right? We've got orders we put in October and we're still getting hardware coming in, just because supply chain issues. It's not all the hardware. Some of the hardware is fine, but other hardware, you just wait, for it to come in. So I don't see, as we scale up and we believe we're going to be bringing on, many PIBs of data, we continue to grow the hardware. And, the idea is let's be efficient and not overbuy too much hardware or have to sit around waiting for it to, be shipped in. So just to give everyone a sense of scale, you shouldn't be thinking about, well, what was the last year like as, the network grew. We do a lot of work with our clients coming in through ESPA and the rest of the community, and the plans are at exabyte scale. So, at that scale, you're just trying to run to keep up, and the efficiency really matters, right? Instead of 5% efficiency, if you can get up to 50 or 80, 90% efficiency, it's better for your bottom line.
Got it. Thanks for the input. I was just wondering, like for the others in the group, is this a pretty common issue? Like I know that like Picnic operates at pretty large scale. I don't know if others in the group are like also really large scale, or are you like smaller scale, or it'd be interesting to hear like other folks' input. If you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, hi. So we was at the recent ESPA with Picnic and Stuart and Co. And one of the sort of thought processes around what we're looking is the underutilization of the hardware. It just seems to be a common factor. And as Stuart was saying, at the moment there's a pretty bad supply chain issue of getting hold of hardware. So we need to make sure that we're utilizing that as much as possible. But even getting to that point of does virtualization work? Is that something that could work on this for the market for the for Boost? How could we utilize that? So there's still quite a bit of discovery maybe to be made around it, but I think that is is key. Especially if you're looking to try and aggregate a number of miners together. Just the complexity around it could be quite mind-boggling. It would be quite nice to be able to see it all aggregated in a central interface.
Thanks for the input.
Yeah, this is really great feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Nelson. So Nelson just shared in the chat that his setup isn't as large of a scale, so he's currently not running into scaling markets problems yet.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. This is Sean Elliott.
Yeah, I can hear you, Sean.
Yeah, I don't have that same scaling issue at the moment either. But I was just kind of curious on terms of retrievals. That is all running through the market nodes as well, right? So that's going to be running through Boost. How much testing has gone into a lot of retrievals happening concurrently while doing deals?
Yeah, so the retrieval pipe we haven't actually tackled yet for Boost. So retrievals will work exactly the same way as they did in the previous iteration of markets. Our plan is to split out retrievals into a separate process. So right now, retrievals go over GraphSync. We also want to make an HTTP interface. There'll be a bitswap interface. So each of these you'll be able to run as separate processes to make it easier to scale, basically.
Yeah, because I'm already seeing bottlenecks with retrievals currently in the existing code. So that was one of my biggest points of jumping on this call, was to see if there was any updates to that. But it sounds like that's in the future roadmap. So
yeah, not a very distant future though. That's kind of something you want to tackle next, basically, once we have storage stable and working well.
Excellent.
Any other questions We have 2 more minutes. Well, if not, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining the call, and thanks to everyone as well who has provided feedback in the past, and thanks in advance for providing feedback on Boost. I think, it was thanks to a lot of the storage writer feedback that help us to build Boost in the first place. So yeah, we definitely hear your feedback. We appreciate it, and looking to use it to improve the future of markets on Filecoin. So thanks everyone for joining. And for the great questions. And thanks to the Boost team for all the work that's been done so far. Oh, and thank you to the events team for helping to coordinate and organize.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.
Everyone.
Yes, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.